summer, into the summer, so that they can come to the board. And I've also then consulted with the government person that we deal with, so that the government is on side, and he will take them forward to cabinet with kind of his blessing on them. We need to have him on side or they're not going anywhere. But I would like to have them in a position to bring to the board for our October meeting, so that the board can approve them, then we can submit them to the government, and then they'll go out for this consultation period. So that's been probably the main focus of my work this last year. The other main point I wanted to talk about was we had a major challenge this last year with a move from our old location to our new location that was basically unexpected, and it was very disruptive for us this last year. And I know we wrote about it in the monthly update, and it probably didn't impact on you very much, but and I'm hoping that the materials that we sent to you throughout the year didn't show that we were going slightly crazy in office at times. But we did have to move, and that cost us more money than we had thought that it would. But we are in a space right now that is a good size that allows us to have our board and committee meetings right on site, which saves us money with catering and all that kind of thing, rather than going to a hotel. And it gives us a little bit of space to grow. Not a whole lot, but enough. We were also having to move and looking for space during the Olympics, and during a time when space just wasn't very available because of that. And it was a difficult time last year to get this done. We moved partly into our new space in June, and then the additional floor space that we were going to get became free next door when the neighbors moved out, as they were going to. So we moved into that space in November. So that two-stage move took a little effort and cost us a little more than we wanted to spend as well. So any questions on our office move, or anything that I've said about the regulation? No, everybody okay with that? The only other thing I wanted to highlight was one of the other milestones this last year was the updates to our website and the total redesign. I think it's much more user-friendly now. I'm hoping that you find it that way. And if there's anything that you see on our website that you would like changed or you find confusing, please just send us an email, and I'll be glad to take a look at it and talk to our IT person about it. And the rest of it, I think, is fairly self-explanatory, but I'm willing to answer any questions anybody has. Oh, okay, thank you.
So at this point, the next order of business is the committee annual reports. And I'm just going to present a brief summary of the work of the registration committee. Much of our work is routine. We approve applications for registration from returning to work and international registrants. We've developed and are using a process of competence self-assessment and self-verification, which leads to a self-directed learning plan, which Melanie helps people to navigate their way through, and the committee reviews. We also determine acceptable courses for upgrading. There are two issues here that relate to bylaws, and the first one talks about registration, 03 full registration, stripped down to its components. Essentially what we've done here is we've agreed with all of the members of the Alliance of Regulatory Bodies that applicants, regardless of which stream they approach us from, be it graduate school or foreign applicants, really must be determined competent in all of the areas of dietetics, clinical, administration, and community in order to become registrants of the college. And this is a change from other years when they could really just choose to be competent in 2 of those fields. The other board policy, BD07, has been revised so that there is a category that we can approve for practical upgrading programs. These have to do with bridging programs and shorter than usual internship programs that recognize that somebody from a different country may have part of the building blocks to become a registrant and may not need to do a full internship program. Apart from that, we worked quite hard with the restricted activities competencies, and we were successful in adjusting our forms for the 2011 year, which you may have noticed when you registered, to try and bring some of those elements into our registration process. There's more work to be done with these. We're not finished yet, but it's getting nearer. So that's the registration committee report. And I'd like to ask, please, Adrian, to talk about the quality assurance committee report.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this last year was the first year that we've had the combination of the Quality Assurance Committee and the Patient Relations Committee. And you need to understand that was a brutal coup. Peter fought it tooth and nail as chair of the Patient Relations Committee, and at one time actually threatened to commit suicide over it. But we managed to calm him down. And in fact, the last year has worked out really, really well, and it was actually a very, very smooth transition, and it's become continued to be a very, very effective committee. One of the most important pieces of business was shepherding the changes to the Code of Ethics through, and in fact, we're going to approve that today at the today or tomorrow at the board meeting. We, last year, as you may recall, purchased a jurisprudence handbook from Alberta, and this last year we've been assessing that in terms of its applicability to our needs, and we've decided it needs some fairly major editorial changes, so we'll be working on that in the coming months. And we expect that that will be rolled out with an appropriate quiz examination connected to it within probably 9 months or so. And finally, the continuing competence program, we've been working with Skillshare, that's our online provider, to tweak that so that it's a more effective method. And obviously, we've had some very, very good feedback from you, the users of that, and we've been taking that into account as well and making those changes to that. So my sense is, as a public board member, I'm looking at that from the outside, that in fact it's becoming a very, very effective tool in terms of usefulness for ensuring continuing competence. Thanks very much.
Now, I'm very happy to report that the following 2 committee reports are very brief. The Inquiry Committee and the Discipline Committee. There is nothing to report because there have been no inquiries in the past year and no disciplines. And I think, thank you all, thank you every single one of you and everyone who's not here for making that so. At this point, could we get a resolution, please, that the annual reports are accepted as circulated? Would anyone be willing to move that? Yes. Caroline Mitchell? Shirley Mitchell, sorry. All in agreement? Okay, carried, thank you. So the next thing on our agenda is the audited financial statement from April 1st, 2010 to March 31st, 2011. And what I'd like to do is just walk you through some of the points that I have. The page to look at, please, is the page that says Statement of Operations. It's probably fairly close to the beginning. What Fern and I have discussed this, and she can correct me if I get any of the details wrong, but the total revenue, as you see, from 2011 is down from 2010 by about $12,500. You can see that the registrant fees remain pretty much the bulk of our revenue, but one of the differences was that we had no grants, and you can see that in 2010 we had a $54,000 grant. And the interest.
Do we need lights? Here? Sorry, Heather, I didn't need to.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, can people see now?
Yes, yeah.
This is a fascinating discussion, so you pay attention now. The interest income was reduced. You'll see that the percentage in 2011 was down, so the total number was down. And you'll also notice that fewer candidates wrote the CDRE exam in BC. So all of these things together led to a drop in our total revenue. Also, we've been noticing, and this doesn't show up, Fern alluded to this before, that there were a higher number of withdrawals in this year, so we're not really sure where the trends are going. If you look at expenses, the expenses though were also down in 2011 by $63,000 compared to 2010, and there were really several reasons for this. And I would say that the uncertainty of the move was a huge driver of this, because for months Fern and Melanie and Marilyn did not know what the situation was going to hold for them, and they used prudence to haul back on a lot of expenses. So what you can see is that occupancy expenses, the rent, has gone up, and that just reflects the cost of doing business, I'm afraid. They postponed the finalization of some projects, which the jurisprudence module that Adrian was alluding to has been set back a bit. It will probably come on in the next year, is my guess, okay? We were saved from expense by all of you good people not having any inquiry cases. That was another thing that helped us out. And there were savings in the office and a certain amount of coping that the staff did with a position that didn't get completely filled for the whole of the year. Again, it was all very prudent activity when such uncertainty was existing. If you will turn over to the next page, it really gives you on this page the statement of change in net assets, the larger picture of where our college is going. You can see that we acquired $9,468 of assets despite amortization, and that was probably related to the computer programs and the support for our network system, my guess there. We increased the restricted fund. The restricted fund, you might consider, is our war chest in case something unforeseen or unusual happens to the college and we have legal expenses that we must deal with. Our goal ultimately is $1 million. We are halfway there, which is really kind of favorable. We won't have to collect quite as much once we reach our goal. And you can see that we've maintained an unrestricted balance of $132,000, which is our drawdown money. It's our operating money from month to month. And I think if people would like to just take a look at the audited statement, that we've done pretty well. We've decided just earlier today that we want to take some of the leftover money and allocate it to our restricted fund, so that that surplus of this year goes to a good use. Now, are there any questions or comments about the financial report?
Perhaps I could just make a comment about the restricted fund. As I think was mentioned, that's designed to, as a backup for us, should we get into any litigation over a complaint or a disciplinary action. And as you know, lawyers' fees mount up. And so the idea is to build up that war chest over the years so that we don't have to come back to you guys for an emergency contribution to finish off a lawsuit. Okay? It's a bit like